Hello, welcome to another Meditation Amsterdam video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how the brain hypnotizes and deludes itself, or how the mind does that, as a matter of fact. And in understanding this mechanism, we'll hopefully be able to fall less prey to that and become more mindfully aware up until the point where that tendency is minimized or perhaps even eliminated, so that we can live with much more clarity. The diagram you see here is a bit of a replica of a video which I call Feel One with Everything by Doing This. If you haven't checked that out, it's probably good to have some context behind what I'm about to say, and I'll probably post the link at the end of this video. And so what you see here is you see a diagram in which you have your sense of self and you have your senses. And we depict the sense of self as feeling whole, feeling complete and happy when you are a free, unsticky awareness that welcomes all the senses in an integral way at the same time, more or less, right? So the collection of all your sensory input, including thinking, emotions, feeling, smelling, hearing, seeing, that entire bubble of sensory awareness is where you derive your sense of self from. And so long as you have non-preferential awareness of everything at once, you feel really, really good and really complete. However, when the mind is uncultivated, there's a certain pattern that takes place. You see, awareness may be looking at all these things all the time passively, no matter what you do. That's why you say that you're always enlightened or always Zen or always the Buddha. However, in an uncultivated mind, focus is pinging around off of different things in the environment and also in the inner environment. So you could draw a kind of, barrier here which says that this is the inner environment, right? Feeling, emotions, thinking, and this is the outer environment in which you are smelling, hearing, seeing. Feeling is a little bit in between the two, right? You feel things outside, but you also have interoception, so feeling inside the body. So those are the inputs that awareness is in touch with all the time, no matter what. However, you also have this ability to go around and focus on different things. So what awareness is doing is it's feeling this all the time, but there is a kind of focus that is pinging around, checking things out all the time. And whenever something makes emotions flare up, either in a good or bad way, we're going to make the heart here red. Yeah. Whenever something makes an emotion sort of flare up in a good or bad way, that suddenly makes the focus awareness zero in on that and just goes, and start really focuses. So suppose that you listen to a song that reminds you of, your late grandmother, for example, right? So your focus of attention is listening this way, right, into that song. That spikes your emotions, and all of a sudden, it makes you start thinking about your grandma, and then the thought about grandma starts to become bigger and bigger. Yeah. So what used to be just like little thoughts, little sensory perceptions, suddenly you zero in on this song, and then you even forget about the song itself, and the focus of attention now is absorbed by your thoughts of grandma, and they start to become really big, right? So we're gonna draw grandma here. She was wearing her spectacles and stuff, and she was this friendly old lady that you miss very much. So there is visual thoughts, there is ABC, sort of, language-based thinking. And this becomes very big. So now all of a sudden, what used to be free awareness, perceiving everything openly all at once, has become kind of hijacked and constrained and focused on this thing over here. And that creates a rupture in the sense of wholeness that you felt. Yeah. And all your awareness is now hijacked by this single point here, and the rest of it suddenly becomes neglected. So I'm going to erase this because the sense of self is lost when this happens. And it is replaced by something else, which I'm about to explain. But it's good to explain the mechanism. So awareness of internal or external things triggers an emotion, which in turn makes you kind of get caught in thought, and thought becomes very big. And as opposed to awareness of everything all at once, you become aware, hyper aware of a single thing, which is based on thinking. Now, this does two things. It sticks awareness into a narrow band as opposed to a broad band, right? It makes you zero in on this. So now the mind is hypnotized by this thought or this train of thinking. As a matter of fact, it's not a single thing, but it's this train of thinking and emotional stuff. So it's mixed in with a bunch of emotions that are coming here, right? And now something else which is really nasty happens, which is a fake observer inside you is born. And the reason for that is, see, when you were the whole self, just this open awareness, which is the real self, there was no preference around all these things, and you were one with them. You were one with your perceptions. But the moment that thinking is stuck in a certain train of thought, you have created a separation inside yourself. And you've given a lot of, you've imparted a separate sense of self to this thing here. And because this is separate from you, there must be a you from which it is separate. And that fake you is created in here, which is this I in here, which is a fake you. So now you have a fake other and you have a fake you. And you have lost the whole you, which is the open awareness that looks at everything all at once. So long as this is the case, so long as the mind is hijacked by its own projections, you lose your sense of self and you lose your sense of wholeness. And these projections create a whole separate universe. And these projections are characterized by being, split into otherness, other. And it is also in another time and in another place. It's elsewhere. We could call this whole land elsewhere. Elsewhere. And else when, right? In the worst case, this is not even grammar, it's not even anything. It's just like full-on FOMO. It's just fear of missing something out, which you don't even know. But that something is other than you. It's in another place or time. And once this dynamic is created, your mind will continue to, if this dynamic is not known, your mind will continue to reinforce trying to get this. Yeah, so all your efforts, so suddenly, all your senses, you're doing whatever, start to become focused. Right? So your focus is even reinforced and everything is pointing towards this elsewhere, which you need to get in order to regain your sense of wholeness. So here's the thing. I'm going to simplify the diagram a little bit to make this a little bit more understandable. What the mind forgets, I'm going to make this rather broad, right? So this is what happens. You zero in on a certain memory, certain thinking, and you create this entire elsewhere, which emotionally you need to resolve, and which the mind thinks, if it had only been different, or if I can make it different in the future, then I'm going to regain my happiness. So the false self that is created versus this other is an unhappy self. Hence the whole red structure. And you truly believe that if you keep reinforcing this and somehow resolving this, that you're going to become happy once again. The problem when this happens, if this dynamic is not understood, is that the mind tends to forget that this is a projection. So once it has created the projection, the fact that it's a projection, so this entire thing here is forgotten. And now you simply have your false self, and you have the false other. And you're trying to get that false other, that elsewhere, that circumstance. You're trying to get that in order to feel happy once again. What the mind doesn't know is that it's a projection, and B, it creates a false self inside, right? So what the mind really longs for is to become whole again in the way that we depicted at the start. Now the way to do that is to use that focus of awareness that got hijacked and to start observing this thing very closely again, so that we can reestablish the understanding that this was a projection after all. So the more you observe the projection from the temporary false self, so you have to deal with this temporary false me for a while. But from this false me, you observe your projection over and over again. And you observe it so much that they become merged once again. And you once again come to understand that this was nothing but a projection. And it becomes unified with the whole me. When that happens, that projection begins to erode. Right? So the idea that this was a separate, a thing separate than you, which you needed to obtain, starts to become eroded, and also the emotionality behind it starts to become eroded. And once you have done this enough, it erodes completely and it becomes reintegrated into you. And once it has become reintegrated into you, desire erodes as well, yeah, and it becomes reintegrated. And when it becomes reintegrated, there is no need for a separate self to be there, because it was always fake anyway. It had only been created in duality versus the other that you projected. And you regain your sense of wholeness once again. Yeah. Now, in order to, for that to happen, you of course need to practice plenty of meditation and mindfulness and resolve that sense of otherness, which pretty much everything, because everything is a projection. Everything that you call a thing out there is a projection of mind that has been created and creates a fake duality of me and other, which needs to be reintegrated and understood as nothing but myself, my greater self, or my greater I, which is this open awareness that just perceives everything. And that is the work at hand, right? So when that happens, also you start to understand thoughts and emotions as a kind of barometer or tool. And when it flares up, when emotions flare up, and suddenly you find yourself caught in thinking and desire, right? Desire, we've spoken about that also before. Then, as opposed to creating this bubble again in which you go chasing and trying to resolve this, you use them as none other than indicators that tell you, aha, something has flared up here and I'm caught in desire or whatever. That means that I have temporarily lost my open sense of abiding, surrendered, open, in the now awareness. And as opposed to tricking myself into chasing this, I simply use attention and bring it back onto itself and regain my sense of wholeness over and over again, so that I can reside on this sense of wholeness more of the time, as opposed to having my senses darting around, my emotions darting around, and my thinking completely hijacking me. hypnotizing me, taking me over, and making me believe that if only I acquire the object of desire, that I will feel whole again. Feeling whole is done prior, not as a consequence of. It's something that happens directly as a consequence of a correct use of your awareness, containing it, bringing it back into itself so that you can feel the sense of wholeness, as opposed to going out there and achieving or chasing, rather. There's nothing wrong with achievement. There's nothing wrong with goals. But before chasing a goal, I think it's quite healthy and constructive to ask yourself, why do I want this? Is it so that I can feel whole again? Is it so that I can pacify and dampen my discomfort and my sense of inadequacy or insufficiency? Right? That means that there's a kink, there's a break in the sense of wholeness here that can be immediately addressed without any need to go out and chase things. Or is it that I'm setting goals for myself because I think I have something to give and something to share and a desire to create? There's a tangible difference between those two. And the difference can be very easily assessed by whether your goals are coming, whether you feel at peace, whether you achieve them or not, whether there's a sense of integrity and wholesomeness to how you feel in the present moment when you are setting the goals. Are you setting the goal to escape, or are you setting it to go further into reality and further into potential pain or discomfort? Right? Those are telltale signs. If the goal is there for a non-constructive purpose, you may still chase it for a while if you think that it'll make you feel a little bit better. But now you should do so while being informed about what is it that creates this sense of wholeness in the first place, which is like this open, surrendered awareness that is just open to all the input at the same time, without taking too much preference or sticking and getting completely hypnotized and hijacked by unresolved things that give you emotional flare-ups and which cause you to desire and become entranced into chasing and elsewhere that may or may not be under your control. So that is yet another angle, another explanation about the mechanism of how mind hypnotizes itself, how mind hijacks itself by forgetting that everything that it considers to be out there is nothing but a projection created by unresolvedness, and that projection creates the sense of duality in which a fake me also appears in the picture, which is never really there. I hope that clarifies things, and I'll be back with more little diagrams and explanations until the point finally lands. Yes, Julio. Be back soon. Cheers.